Today, you'll improve all areas of your English by reading a news article discussing the record-breaking heat in Western Europe. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline: Western Europe faces more heat after a scorching June caused 2,000 deaths. So here we have June. Now, normally, you wouldn't use an article with June. You would just say the meeting is in June. I went on vacation in June. So you use the preposition most of the time to talk about activities in a specific month. Here, we're using it as a noun. So it's a thing more than a time reference. June. Now, scorching is the adjective that describes it. So you might say, we had a hot summer, but summer is a longer period of time. So you could say, we had a hot June. We had a dry May. We had a wet April. And you can use the month, and then an adjective to describe that. Why don't you try this in the comments? You can say we, meaning my city, my area. We had, because it's in the past, and then June or whatever month just ended. And then you need an adjective here. Common weather adjectives: hot, cold, dry, wet. You can say rainy instead of wet, humid. And then scorching means extremely hot. Freezing means extremely cold. So why don't you put that in the comments? And don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Now let's keep reading. Spain and France are bracing for another possible heat wave. So a heat wave is a prolonged period of time. It can be simply 2 or 3 days, or it can be a week, 2 or 3 weeks, or longer, where temperatures are hotter than normal. Spain and France are bracing for. Do you know what bracing means in this context? It means prepare. So sometimes a native speaker will say, we need to brace for this. We need to prepare for this. And then we generally use this with a problem or issue, in this case with the weather, a heat wave. Now, of course, our subject is plural, they, because 2 countries, they are bracing for. Just like you prepare for, the preposition you need is for. Now, after for, because it's a preposition, you can use a noun, heat wave, or you can use a verb as well. That could bring temperatures of 44 degrees Celsius. So notice, verbally, you would say degrees in a plural. And usually there's a little circle above 44, and that would represent degrees. Degrees Celsius, 111 degrees Fahrenheit. So you don't add an S to Celsius or Fahrenheit. You add it to the word degree because it's more than one, so it's plural. Temperatures of, notice this preposition, of 44 degrees Celsius, 111 degrees Fahrenheit, over the coming days. So over, this is a preposition for the time reference. Coming days, it means the days in the near future. It's not clear what number of days that is. It could be 3 days. It could be 5, 7 days. If it were longer than 7, most likely they would say weeks instead of days. So if I see days, I immediately think it's going to be 7 or less. And over just is viewing that time reference as a whole. So from day 1 to day 7, let's just say that entire time over the coming days. As figures show that June's extreme heat, so notice, June has a possessive because the extreme heat belongs to June. That June's extreme heat was responsible for. So we have to be responsible for For is our preposition again. So the same rule applies. You can have a noun or you can have a verb. So to be, this is in the past, and you need to conjugate it with the subject as well. So June's extreme heat, that's the subject. So it, because it's singular, it was responsible for more than 2,000 excess deaths in the two countries. So the two countries being Spain and France. Excess, this is a technical term used in the medical industry. Excess deaths means that in June, they have a number of people who would normally die, unfortunately. Now, in this June, let's just divide it evenly between the two countries. So we'll say 1,000 additional deaths in Spain. So additional is a replacement for excess in this technical sense.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
Spain's state meteorological agency. So meteorological, this means relating to weather, the agency that studies weather. AMET, I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly. It's possible that each letter stands for something, or this is the short form for the word meteorological. I'm not sure because I don't know much about Spain's state meteorological agency. So someone from Spain can let me know. I will say AMET. It could be AMET as well. AMET said a mass of dry and very hot air would bring persistently high temperatures. Persistently means that it's lasting for a long time, longer than wanted or needed, persistently. So in this context, it sounds negative, but it can also certainly be a positive word as well. In this case, it's an adverb. It's also commonly used as the adjective, which is right here, persistent. So when you're learning a language, you need to be persistent. When you're applying for a job, maybe it's beneficial if you're persistent with the company that you want to work for. So you send them numerous follow-ups, asking when they're available to meet, and you're persistent. You don't just send them once and one message and wait for them to contact you. You're persistent. It can also backfire and be deemed annoying and not get you the result, but it's one strategy. So it can certainly be a positive thing. In this context, it sounds negative. Would bring persistently high temperatures to much of Spain from Saturday. From Saturday means Saturday is the starting point in time. And there's no ending point because maybe they don't know when this will end. From Saturday, starting on Saturday. Adding that temperatures in parts of the southeast could hit. So notice they're using the phrasal or the verb hit to mean reach. And we use hit when it's a more dramatic reach. So hit 42 degrees Celsius to 44 degrees Celsius on Tuesday. Could is our modal verb. So remember we have modal and then base verb. And could means there's the potential. So it's also possible the temperature is only 38. Now in normal temperatures, if I ask my husband or friend, oh, what's the temperature? He would just say the number. he would not say degrees Celsius. He would just say, oh, it's 24, it's 28, it's 32. He would just say the number. Could hit 42 on Tuesday. Let's go back to persistent. I want to share one more thing. My example is she followed up 10 times after the interview. So we had an interview. I did not contact her, but she contacted me 10 times to ask about the status of the position. I could say, I appreciate her persistence. So in this case, it's a noun, which I didn't explain. I explained the adjective, but it's very common to use the noun. You know it's a noun because there's a determiner before it. In this case, a possessive. Her persistence, because it's a thing. I appreciate her persistence. She's very persistent. That's an adjective. Again, I could also perceive this in a negative way and think she's annoying. It depends. Let's keep reading. I added this example, which I explained verbally, but if I ask my husband, what's the high today? What's the high today? Do you know what the high is today? And he could say it's because it's the weather. It's going up to 28. Going up to, because it might be lower, but it's not supposed to exceed. That's the purpose of stating a high, is reach but not exceed. And it's possible it doesn't exceed. Of course, sometimes it does, but it's going up to 28. That's very common to use going up to. Let's keep reading. Temperatures will begin to rise over the weekend. Remember, we use over to talk about the weekend as an entire time reference, and over meaning at any point. Temperatures will begin to rise over the weekend, and we can't rule out another heat wave, said Ruben Del Campo. So here we have quotation marks, so we know someone was saying this, and this person is an AMET spokesperson. Remember, AMET is the weather agency in Spain. We can't rule out another heat wave. The phrasal verb here is rule out. We use this when you exclude something as an option. So let's consider our options for the weather for the weekend. It could be hot, just normal hot. It could be above normal hot, so heat wave potentially. Heat wave would be if it lasted for a period of time. If it's only one day, you wouldn't say a heat wave. So it could be normal hot, it could be above normal hot, it could be colder than normal, could be rainy. So these are options. Well, we can rule out it being too cold because it's supposed to be hot. We can rule out exceeding the normal temperatures. We can rule out rain. So now we're left with only one choice. So that's how we use rule out. So he's saying out of all the options, we need to add heat wave to one of those options, which means above average temperatures, but for a prolonged period of time, 3 days, 5 days, or longer. So they cannot say this won't happen. So they're including it as an option. That's the use of can't rule out another heat wave. So simply said, there's a possibility of another heat wave. The agency said, so this is Spain's weather agency, the agency said the high temperatures could increase the likelihood of forest fires. So the likelihood of. Likelihood is how likely something's going to happen. So this can be used with weather because they talk about the likelihood of a flood, the likelihood of a heat wave. So this is asking how likely is a flood? Oh, it's not at all likely, somewhat likely, highly likely. Those are the degrees of likelihood. Now, we also in weather, we state this as a percentage. There's a 30% chance of rain. That's not very likely. There's an 80% chance of rain. That's very likely. So the likelihood of forest fires next week, and warned older people and those with cardiovascular problems to take extra care in the daytime heat. So the weather agency had this message, warned. So they had a message that certain people should take precautions. And the people were older people and people with cardiovascular problems to take extra care in the daytime heat. I wrote 3 examples here. There's a high likelihood of a heat wave. This sounds like a more formal way of saying it. A heat wave is very likely. This sounds professional, more everyday, maybe in the middle, exactly where it is. And then a casual, everyday way is there's an 80% chance of a heat wave. So notice the different sentence structure using these 3. AMAT said last month was the second warmest June on record. So second warmest on record. On record meaning that they have the records, the historical records, the historical data of the temperatures in June. So since they started tracking the historical data, let's say it was 150 years ago. Well, then last month was the second highest in 150 years, whenever that record starts. AMET said last month was the second warmest June on record, surpassed only by June 2025, with an average temperature that was 3.2 degrees Celsius or 5.8 degrees Fahrenheit above the norm. The norm, of course, means the normal temperature, the average temperature for June based on historical data. And surpassed means, well, if this is your goal, you reach your goal, and then you surpass your goal. So you go beyond. So if the high temperature was supposed to be 28, well, then if it is 28, then it reached the high. If it's 29 or 30, then it surpassed the high. It exceeded the high. Let's keep reading. Scientists have said the heat wave. So notice here, heat wave is a noun. So before we were talking about it in a general sense, so we used a. There's a chance of a heat wave. You change a to the to be specific. The heat wave we're currently facing. The heat wave in my city. The heat wave in Spain. So that's a specific heat wave. So that's why it changed to the. Scientists have said the heat wave, which was the most severe and widespread to hit Western Europe, was possible only due to the climate crisis driven by fossil fuel burning. So the climate crisis, climate change is what people would normally call this, due to climate change. Climate change doesn't take an article. So when you're talking about climate change, you would say we need to address climate change. Oh, this new article is on climate change. I went to a conference about climate change or discussing climate change. So know the, but here it's the crisis. Now, what type of crisis? The climate crisis. So this is an alternative wording, one that I don't frequently hear to replace climate change, no article. Only due to climate change or the climate crisis driven by. If something is driven by, it means that whatever comes next is what's causing it to happen or causing it to worsen. So you could say that the forest fires were driven by the heat wave. So the forest fires only exist because of the heat wave. So it causes it, prolongs it, worsens it. Driven by fossil fuel burning. So fossil fuels like gas. While many people in hotter parts of the world have dismissed Europe's high temperatures. So if they dismiss it, they would just say 42. I mean, that's a regular temperature for us, or we routinely have temperatures in the low 40s or mid 40s or high 40s. So if you dismiss something, you just say that isn't important or that isn't significant. Have dismissed Europe's high temperatures. It is important to understand that most of Europe is ill prepared. Ill prepared means Europe is not prepared or is poorly prepared, is ill prepared for prolonged periods of temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius, coupled with high humidity. So coupled with, you have the temperatures, you have the high temperature, high humidity, and they're together. So that would be coupled with. So when two individual things work together. Prolonged means lasting longer than normal, longer than expected. Let's keep reading. Most Northern European homes are not fitted with air conditioning and are generally built to keep heat in during the cold winter months. So this in represents inside the home. And fitted with means that the home has the piping and the infrastructure to support air conditioners. The intense heat resulted in many businesses, iconic tourist sites, and public facilities being forced to close earlier than usual. So being forced to close, it means that the decision to close was not their own. It was not a decision they wanted to make. It was forced. So it was here, if you force something. So you can imagine that the pressure was on them. So they had to close because of the intense heat earlier than usual. So having earlier than usual, it means that they weren't closed for the entire day. Just earlier than usual could be they were supposed to close at 5, but instead they closed at 4. So only 1 hour earlier. But it could also be they closed at noon. So 4 hours earlier. So it just depends. We don't know the exact amount. And that's the end of the article. So now I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. Western Europe faces more heat after a scorching June caused 2,000 deaths. Spain and France are bracing for another possible heat wave that could bring temperatures of 44 degrees Celsius, 111 degrees Fahrenheit over the coming days, as figures show that June's extreme heat was responsible for more than 2,000 excess deaths in the two countries. Spain's State Meteorological Agency, AMET, said a mass of dry and very hot air would bring persistently high temperatures to much of Spain from Saturday, adding that temperatures in parts of the southeast could hit 42 degrees Celsius to 44 degrees Celsius on Tuesday. Temperatures will begin to rise over the weekend and we can't rule out another heat wave, said Ruben Del Campo, an AMET spokesperson. The agency said the high temperatures could increase the likelihood of forest fires next week and warned older people and those with cardiovascular problems to take extra care in the daytime heat. AMET said last month was the second warmest June on record, surpassed only by June 2025, with an average temperature that was 3.2 degrees Celsius or 5.8 degrees Fahrenheit above the norm. Scientists have said the heat wave, which was the most severe and widespread to hit Western Europe, was possible only due to the climate crisis driven by fossil fuel burning. While many people in hotter parts of the world have dismissed Europe's high temperatures, it's important to understand that most of Europe is ill prepared for prolonged periods of temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius, coupled with high humidity. Most Northern European homes are not fitted with air conditioning and are generally built to keep heat in during the cold winter months. The intense heat resulted in many businesses, iconic tourist sites, and public facilities being forced to close earlier than usual.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put yes, 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 put yes, yes, yes in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.